So my son Michael and his wife Sarah are sitting in this mahogany-paneled lawyer's office, thinking they're about to become millionaires. They're literally counting their chickens before they hatch, probably already mentally redecorating my house and planning expensive vacations. Sarah's got this smug little smile, and Michael's sitting there with his arms crossed like he's earned this windfall just by existing. But the lawyer clears his throat and reads this one line that just destroys their entire world. To my son Michael and his wife Sarah, who taught me the profound difference between lineage and love, I leave the sum of exactly $217. $1 for each of the 217 times they prom a visit from my grandchildren and failed to appear. The silence that followed was more violent than a scream. Like, you could hear a pin drop brutal. Michael's handsome face, the face I used to adore when he was little, twisted into this mask of pure disbelief. Sarah let out this small, strangled gasp, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her mouth like she just witnessed a 10-car pileup. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I share real family drama stories that'll make your jaw drop. So make sure to hit that subscribe button, because trust me, this one's absolutely wild, and it gets so much worse. Michael's face went white as a sheet, then red, then back to white again. Sarah actually gasped out loud, her hand flying to her mouth like she'd just witnessed a car crash. They came expecting millions. The house with its marble countertops and hardwood floors, the stock portfolio, the art collection, everything my late husband and I had carefully built over 40 years of marriage and hard work. Instead, they got a meticulously calculated bill for their years of neglect. But here's how we got to this moment. And trust me, it's a long story of heartbreak that turned into the most satisfying revenge you've ever heard. I'm Eleanor, and for the last 5 years since my husband passed, I've been living in this big, beautiful house that felt more like a mausoleum. My husband and I bought it when Michael was just starting high school, thinking we'd fill it with grandchildren's laughter someday. Instead, I went from having a full, rich life to just existing. The silence was the absolute worst part. You know that kind of oppressive quiet that feels heavy, like the house itself is holding its breath, waiting for something that's never going to come? Picture this. I'm rattling around in a 4-bedroom house with a dining room table that seats 12, and I'm eating my meals alone, watching the same chair where my husband used to sit every morning with his coffee and newspaper. The echoes of my footsteps on the hardwood floors sounded like gunshots in the emptiness. My grandchildren, Ava and Ben, they were supposed to be my whole world. These 2 beautiful kids with my husband's eyes and Michael's stubborn chin. But I could only see them through pixelated video calls that always got cut short, usually right when we were starting to have fun. The calls always felt rushed, like they were squeezing me in between more important things. Michael would call with that tone in his voice, you know the one? Kind of tired and slightly irritated, like talking to me was this huge inconvenience. Sorry, Mom, the kids are just so swamped. Soccer practice, piano lessons, tutoring, birthday parties. You know how it is with kids these days. I did know. Oh boy, did I know. I had their entire schedule printed out and pinned to my kitchen corkboard like some kind of obsessed stalker. Color-coded by activity. I studied that thing like I was planning a military invasion, trying to find one single free hour where maybe, just maybe, I could actually see my grandchildren in person instead of through a screen. The schedules were packed, sure, but there were gaps. There were always gaps. What there wasn't was will. I offered everything I could think of. I said I'd drive the 2 hours to their suburban McMansion. My eyesight was still perfect, my car was pristine, and honestly, I would have driven through a blizzard just to spend an afternoon with those kids. Oh no, Mom, absolutely not, Sarah would say, her voice dripping with fake concern. The traffic is just a nightmare on weekends, and the kids are so tired by the time they get home from their activities. They just need to decompress, you understand. Fine. I offered to hire a professional car service to bring them to me for a weekend. I promised homemade cookies, trips to the children's museum, the zoo, art projects, whatever their little hearts desired. I would have built them a playground in my backyard if they'd asked. Sarah's response? And I remember this word for word because it cuts so deep. It's such a lovely thought, Eleanor. Really it is. But their routine is just so important at this age. All the child development experts say consistency is key. Uprooting them, even for a fun weekend, just throws everything off balance. Their routine, their precious sacred routine, that apparently couldn't spare 2 days for their grandmother, who was slowly dying of loneliness. The presents started accumulating in my spare bedroom, like some kind of shrine to broken promises. A state-of-the-art telescope for Ben's 10th birthday, because he'd mentioned loving space during one of our brief video calls. A gorgeous, custom-made Victorian dollhouse for Ava's 8th birthday, complete with tiny furniture and working lights, because she'd said she wanted to be an architect like her great-grandfather. These weren't cheap gifts thrown together at the last minute. I spent months researching, finding the perfect presents that showed I actually listened to what they said during our conversations. But they just sat there, wrapped in cheerful paper that faded with dust, becoming these heartbreaking monuments to everything I wanted to give them but couldn't. I became a ghost haunting my own family tree. Just a name they mentioned in passing when someone asked about grandparents, a duty they reluctantly fulfilled with these stilted 5-minute phone calls exactly twice a week. Like clockwork. Tuesday and Saturday evenings, 7 o'clock sharp, because Sarah had put it in their family calendar as grandma duty. I found out about that calendar entry by accident during one call when Ava was looking at their family iPad and read it out loud. The silence after she said it was deafening. But then something changed my entire world. And it happened on what seemed like just another ordinary Tuesday. Maria has been my housekeeper for 3 years. She's this incredibly hardworking, quiet woman from El Salvador, with kind eyes that always look a little tired. Her husband works 2 jobs to support the family, so sometimes she has to bring her kids, Tom and Sophie, to work with her after school. The first few times, I barely noticed them. They were so well behaved, just sitting quietly at my kitchen table with their coloring books and homework while their mom cleaned. But then I started really paying attention. Tom was 10, same age as Ben, with this serious concentration when he drew. Sophie was 7, just like Ava, but where Ava was always polished and perfect in our video calls, Sophie was all scraped knees and wild hair and infectious giggles. I started leaving out fresh cookies and cold milk, not fancy store-bought stuff, but homemade chocolate chip cookies like I used to make for Michael when he was little. Then I brought out some of my late husband's old art supplies from the basement. Watercolors, colored pencils, sketch pads that had been gathering dust for years. Tom could draw like Picasso, I swear. He'd sketch these incredibly detailed superheroes and dragons with backstories he'd tell me about while he worked. And Sophie, oh my goodness, Sophie had this energy that could light up a football stadium. She'd bounce around my house like she owned the place, chattering about everything and nothing. One particular afternoon that I'll never forget, Sophie found me standing in my living room, staring at the mantelpiece where I kept framed school photos of Ava and Ben. Professional portraits where they looked perfect but distant, like beautiful strangers. I didn't even realize tears were streaming down my face until this tiny hand tugged on the sleeve of my sweater. "Why are you so sad, Mrs. Eleanor?" Sophie asked, her big brown eyes full of genuine concern that I hadn't seen from anyone in years. I knelt down to her level, and the truth just poured out of me like water from a broken dam. "I miss my grandchildren very, very much, sweetheart." Sophie didn't ask why I couldn't see them or offer empty reassurances. She just wrapped her small arms around my neck in this fierce, clumsy hug that nearly knocked me over. And she held on tight, like she was trying to squeeze all the sadness right out of me. From that day forward, she started calling me Grandma Eleanor. Not Mrs. Eleanor, not ma'am. Grandma Eleanor. Tom, always following his little sister's fearless lead, soon did the same. When Maria heard them, her face flushed deep red with embarrassment. She started apologizing frantically in rapid Spanish and English, trying to correct them. But I stopped her with tears in my eyes. "Please," I said, my voice thick with emotion I'd been holding back for years. "It's the most beautiful sound I've heard in this house since my husband died." They became the heartbeat of my entire week, the thing that got me out of bed every Tuesday morning, my silent, tomb-like house would suddenly explode with life and laughter. They'd burst through the front door like tiny hurricanes, backpacks flying, yelling at the top of their lungs, "Grandma Eleanor, we're here! We missed you!" Can you imagine? 2 kids who actually missed me, who ran to find me instead of having to be bribed or forced to spend time with their grandmother. Tom would race to show me his latest masterpiece, detailed drawings of superheroes saving the world or dragons protecting magical kingdoms. I started framing every single one and hanging them in my hallway, creating this amazing gallery of a 10-year-old's imagination. That hallway went from being this sad, empty space to being the most colorful, joyful part of my entire house. Sophie would tell me about her day with the dramatic flair of a seasoned storytelling, about the mean girl who pulled her hair during recess and how she told her teacher, about the boy named Marcus who shared his animal crackers with her at lunch, about how she got an A on her spelling test and drew a picture of a rainbow on it. Just normal, everyday kid drama that I absorbed like a woman dying of thirst, finally finding water. I helped them with homework at my big mahogany dining room table, the same table that hadn't been used for a real family meal in over 5 years, where I'd been eating my sad, lonely dinners while staring at empty chairs. Suddenly it had a purpose again. There were crayon marks and pencil shavings and juice box rings, and it was absolutely perfect. Through our conversations, I learned that Tom dreamed of becoming an architect, just like my late father had been. He'd spend hours drawing elaborate building designs and explaining how each room would work, his eyes lighting up with passion. Sophie wanted to be a veterinarian because, in her words, animals are nicer than most people and they can't lie to you. Smart kid. The most amazing thing was that they didn't want anything from me except my time and attention. They didn't ask for expensive toys or money or fancy trips. Their love wasn't transactional like everything else in my life had become. It was pure, simple, and freely given. When I made them snacks, they'd hug me and say thank you like I'd given them the moon. When I helped Sophie tie her shoes, she'd beam at me like I was the smartest person alive. For the first time in years, I felt useful, needed, loved. The final devastating break with my blood family came on a particularly rainy Sunday in October. I had called Michael with this carefully rehearsed casual tone, practically bouncing with excitement about what I'd managed to secure. "I know how incredibly busy you all are," I'd said, trying to keep the desperate hope out of my voice, but I managed to get 4 tickets to the premiere of that new animated movie. The one about the dragons? I know Ava and Ben have been dying to see it, and I thought this might be a really special treat for all of us. There was this long, telling pause on the other end of the line. Then I heard Sarah's voice in the background, not even attempting to whisper, her tone sharp with irritation and contempt. "Just tell her no," she'd hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "I am absolutely not spending my one free Sunday dealing with your overbearing mother. God, it's always something with her, isn't it? Doesn't she have any friends her own age? Why does she always have to make everything about her?" Michael came back on the line, and I could hear the exhaustion and annoyance in his voice. He didn't even try to make up a believable excuse. "Sorry, Mom, we've already made plans for that day. Maybe another time." "Okay." Click. The dial tone echoed in my ear like a death knell. "Doesn't she have any friends?" The casual cruelty of those words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air right out of my lungs. I sat there in my empty living room, phone still pressed to my ear, and something fundamental inside me just broke. But it wasn't the devastated, helpless kind of broken I'd been feeling for years. This was different. The deep, aching hurt began to crystallize into something cold and hard and sharp. It was a moment of absolute, devastating clarity that changed everything. I wasn't their mother anymore. I was an item on their to-do list that they were perpetually procrastinating on. My love, my loneliness, my desire to be part of their lives, it was all just an inconvenience to them. A burden they tolerated because they felt obligated, not because they cared. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my study and made a list. I went through years of calendars, emails, broken promises, every "we'll have to reschedule," every "something came up," every lie. I stopped counting at 217. The next morning, I called my lawyer, been handling our family's business for 40 years. I told him I wanted to change my will. When I explained what I wanted to do, he looked at me over his glasses. Eleanor, this is highly unorthodox. They'll contest it. Good, I said. That's why we're going to make it bulletproof. I want a psychiatric evaluation today. I want to record a video statement. I want every broken promise documented and notarized. I'm not senile. I'm not being manipulated. I'm being precise. So here's what I did. The house, the stocks, the art collection, $9 million, give or take. All it went into a trust for Tom and Sophie. Money for their education, healthcare, their futures. Everything I would have given my own blood, plus a generous stipend for Maria so she could stop working and focus on raising them. I wasn't just cutting out my son. I was building a new legacy with people who actually loved me. Back in that lawyer's office, reality was hitting Michael hard. He jumped up, face red as a tomato. This is insane. That cleaner manipulated her. This is undue influence. We'll fight this. The lawyer didn't even blink, just pressed a button on his desk. A screen came down from the ceiling, and there I was, sitting in my favorite chair, looking directly into the camera. Michael, my recorded self said, if you're watching this, you've discovered that love isn't unconditional. Like anything precious, it needs care. You failed to provide it. You might think Maria manipulated me. Their only manipulation was showing me kindness. They called me grandma. They shared their lives with me. They did what family is supposed to do. I went on for 10 more minutes, detailing broken promise after broken promise. When it ended, Michael had collapsed back in his chair. His rage was gone, replaced by this empty, hollow look. Sarah was crying, but not for me. She was crying for the lifestyle that just vanished. The lawyer slid over this thick file. Your mother's diary, psychiatric evaluation, everything. Any contest attempt will be futile and honestly embarrassing. This wasn't revenge. This was truth. I'd spent my life building a fortune for people who saw me as a vault to crack open when I died. So I gave it to 2 kids who saw me as a person to love while I was alive. Right now, that same lawyer is making another call to a small apartment across town. He's telling a hardworking mother that her children never have to worry about money again, that their dreams are funded, that the woman they called Grandma Eleanor gave them one last gift. I didn't just buy them a future. I bought my own peace. My legacy isn't destruction. It's creation, built on real love. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story hit you in the feels, smash that like button. More family drama coming your way next week, so don't forget to subscribe.